Hey, it's Drybear. Diablo 4 Season 1 has begun, so I'm going to give you my day 1 impressions today. But first, you should come hang out with me on my live stream. I'm live every single day on twitch.tv/Drybear. If you do come hang out with me in the community, then you're going to wake up in the next few days in a panic, realizing that you forgot something, only to wake up further and realize there was nothing that you forgot. Everything's fine. All right, let's talk about my feelings about the patch and about the Season 1 update. I actually overall have a rather positive viewpoint on the season. I think in general it still feels really good. I think that it for sure feels like the first season of Diablo 4. It does feel a little light. It feels like there definitely could have been a lot more content, and the content that's there definitely feels like there could have been more meat to it. But all the same, I do think it feels good. I think if you were to rush a season out the door, within like 6 weeks to 8 weeks of having to do it, I think that this is probably as good as it could have gotten without having to do more time for it. So let's look at the pros and cons of Season 1. I actually think that the XP right now is the most varied that it's ever been, which is pretty cool. What I mean by that is that you can actually do most activities and get comparable experience. You can run Whispers if you want, which is, by the way I recommend that everyone level up to World Tier 3, where you need to start doing Nightmare Dungeons and Malignant Tunnels. But in World Tier 1 and 2, up to level 50, I think you should just be doing your Tree of Whispers. Not only are you going to get a boatload of XP, you'll also get a bunch of loot. You get the most legendaries doing your Whisper caches. You'll also get a decent amount of gems that you can put into your gear as well. You'll still encounter a lot of Malignant enemies and things that you can clear, and you'll be clearing out your requirements for your seasonal journey. Your seasonal journey requires you to do dungeons that aren't Malignant tunnels. It requires you to do cellars. It requires you to do world events. It requires you to do whispering caches. And if you're doing this, you're going to be able to complete your seasonal journey very quickly. The one downside that I would tell you, though, is that the XP definitely feels a lot slower. Part of this is because when you start encountering higher level encounters or more difficult encounters, a lot of those scalers are gone or very small now, which means that if you take on harder difficulty, it's not going to be as massively different as it was before. This includes strongholds and things like that. But luckily, strongholds are still a very viable way to level if that's what you want to do and want to reset strongholds over and over. You can do that. You can reset dungeons. You can do whispering. That's what I think is really good about this. When it comes to the seasonal content, I wouldn't say it blows me away, but it's good. It's enjoyable. I think most of the hearts, maybe like 30 to 40% of the hearts, I shouldn't say most, but like 30-40% of the hearts are actually very build defining and very interesting. And I think they will end up lending themselves to some really fun endgame builds for most of the classes. Now, if I was going to rank the Malignant Heart intrigue and fun level, I would say that the Rogue and the Necromancer got the best hearts in the game by far. They got the most interesting hearts, and that's going to make the most interesting builds. I would say Druid's kind of in the middle, and then at the bottom is like Barbarian and Sorc, or how interesting their hearts are. It would be Sorc, and then I think Barbarian got the least interesting hearts out of everyone. But I'm playing a Druid. I think there's definitely some in there that are pretty fun. The one that sucks enemies in with my ultimate is super cool. Spawning free Cyclone or free Wolves is kind of interesting. And then I'm excited to mess around with the Wrathful as well. Though the general ones have also been quite interesting. The rotating Wrathful heart that gives you attack speed, and then it gives you spirit generation, so primary resource generation, and then it gives you barrier. I'm actually really enjoying that kind of rotating elemental thing that goes through, right? Like, what is it? The prime of elements or something that was in D3, where it rotates all the time. It's actually proving to be quite powerful and quite fun for me, so I'm enjoying that for sure. And they actually do give you quite a lot of jewelry. So all of the seasonal journey bonus caches seem to drop a bunch of jewelry. You get plenty of them, and it is kind of interesting to find jewelry that has the right socket that you're looking for to try and build that out. And on top of that, after a little bit of testing, you can actually combine any number of sockets that you want. If you wanted to have 3 vicious sockets, you could. If you wanted to have 3 brutal, you could. If you wanted to have a mixture of them, you could. The only limitation is that you cannot duplicate the same Malignant Heart in your build, which is just like legendary powers. If you have 2 of the same, it'll take the higher one and the other one will deactivate. So you can't duplicate them, but you can mix and match them, which is pretty fun. And I think that will lead itself to being able to fill gaps in a build. Maybe you need survivability on, say, a Sorc or a Necromancer, and you want to be able to build in more brutal hearts. Maybe you need more damage on, say, like a Barbarian. You can build that in there as well. Maybe you need more move speed, that sort of thing. So I think there's definitely some options there that make it pretty interesting for people that really want to mess around with their build. And the last minute change that they put live just before Season 1 started made a huge difference, and that is they put armor, base armor, on all of the hearts. And that way that helps replace the armor we lost with the skulls in our jewelry. This was a very last minute change, but it was very needed. And I think it was something that I'm glad they rushed it in just before the launch. It is also super cool that we get to keep our map progress and our Lilith statue progress. It feels much better to be able to not have to, like, you don't have to go get your Lilith statues. You can see the whole map if you've explored it all before. I'm actually baffled that they really wanted us to go through and do all of our Lilith statues and reveal the whole map, have it completely fog of war every single time the season restarted. That just blows my mind because I feel like that would very quickly kill the seasonal experience. I actually don't mind doing the strongholds again. I don't mind doing the dungeons again as much. It's definitely not the best, but I definitely don't mind it. And I don't mind doing the side quests. That doesn't bother me much at all either. So I think they picked the right ones to be able to do, because if I had to do those every season, I think I would probably lose my mind. Talking about the Malignant enemies, I think it is actually pretty accessible and pretty plentiful. You can find them all over the place. I think it definitely feels like it's part of the world, and the Malignant tunnels do seem to be okay. I have a feeling that late game, when you're really trying to push Malignant tunnels, there may not be enough of them because they don't really spawn or have a high spawn rate. But you can re-enter and keep clearing them if you'd like and kind of have that same bonus, which is pretty decent. However, there are a couple problems that I would like to see fixed before sooner rather than later when it comes to the seasonal issues with the Malignant. The first is that when you encounter those pedestals that spawn on the ground, I think they spawn way too slowly. So as it stands right now, when you kill a Malignant elite, the pedestal spawns out of the ground, and then you click the pedestal, it'll dissolve into the ground, and then a little while later, another Malignant elite will come out of that. You fight it, they'll drop a caged heart. But I think that process takes a total of like 8 to 10 seconds right now. It is so long, and it happens multiple times per Malignant tunnel. I'm actually at the point now where, and I recommend you do this as well, as you encounter these pedestals, when you see it, just click it, go fight other stuff, and then come back to see what the mob has spawned. Because when you kill Malignant Elite, especially in the overworld, it'll slowly grow a pedestal out of the ground. This takes 2 to 3 seconds for it to grow out of the ground. And then it solidifies, and then it's clickable. Then you click it, and then it slowly dissolves into the ground, fades away, has this exit animation in VFX, and then it waits, and then it waits, and then the mob will start crawling out of the ground and crawl up, and then be a targetable. And it just takes forever. And I have a feeling that doing this 10,000 more times is going to be excruciating. The time they just need to spawn right away. Click the pedestal, you get rushed right away. Keep that momentum moving. I don't want to sit there and wait for it. And I certainly don't want to hit the pedestal and walk away, right? Like in most of the Path of Exile mechanics that are very similar to this one, where you click the pustule, or you click the pedestal, or you click the pillar, or whatever it is, stuff goes crazy like almost instantly, right? Like you start getting swarmed, the whole thing changes, there's stuff going on, someone rushes you. This just takes way too long for how long you're waiting. It is absolutely ridiculous. Another thing that's kind of weird about it as well is I think almost every time the mob that spawned the pedestal will be the same type of mob that crawls out of the ground, which to me feels a little, not that it makes any logical sense, that it doesn't really matter. It just feels weird that I kill a giant goatman, or like a goatman overseer, or I kill a dread knight, or I kill a drowned mariner, and then they go down and I wait this long duration for it to summon a new one, and it's literally the same exact mob, like the same mob that I just killed, crawls out of the ground and starts attacking me. And it just feels weird. I don't know. That whole process just feels strange. I like getting the hearts. I like the fact that it exists. I like the mechanic, but just, I don't know. Even after a day, it feels really awkward to just kill one mob, wait a bunch of time, and then kill the same mob identically once again for loot. I also feel like there could have been more hearts. I understand the constraint on time and dev work, but I think there could have been more hearts to play around with. And in general, I think that the hearts themselves being part of the inventory system the way that they are really adds more stress to an already strained inventory system. So as you get later and later to the game, you do want hearts that you want to hold on to as duplicates, but you're already hitting issues where you're running into out of inventory space, having these hearts stack on top of each other and be in your inventory. You also can't pull them out of the jewelry. Like there's no way to extract them, which means that once it goes into a piece of jewelry, that heart is effectively gone. You can't get it out again. You have to get a new one, which means that you do want to, you're heavily incentivized and encouraged to hold on to duplicate hearts of the same power so that when you replace gear, you can swap in the new heart that you won't be able to extract and get back. So you're encouraged to have a large stockpile of these things based on the way the system is designed, and it's adding stress to an already constrained inventory system, which is kind of rough. And the other thing that feels really bad too is that the only way you can disenchant them to get the ichor you need to keep crafting more of the malignant hearts and of the invokers is you have to go to the table. It's just like, you know, part of me wants the disenchant or the salvage system from like Lost Ark, where you can do it directly from your inventory anywhere in the world. It makes it feel a lot better when you start getting overloaded, but you know, having to go back to a table, and the tables aren't in every town either. I think there's one in Kyovashad and there's one in Dry Steppes, but you have to go to those tables in order to salvage the hearts that you're not going to use. So if you fill up your inventory with hearts and legendary powers and gems and all of these things, and you're loaded up, which doesn't take very long, you then have to go to the blacksmith to salvage your gear. You have to go to the stash or the jeweler to deal with your gems. You have to go to the bench, you know, the bench to Corman's bench in order to deal with all the hearts, and you're just kind of bouncing around to all these vendors every single time, which I feel like, you know, adds to that. Yeah, there's definitely still some core issues with the game that could be a lot better, but I think it is worth playing, and there's some cool new builds that work, and I think the XP so far has not been so bad. It slows down pretty hard after you push past 50, but 1 to 50 didn't feel too much different, and I think there's actually a good variety of things that you can do for XP. So those are my thoughts on day 1. I'll be sure to update you as we progress along. We'll be continuing today and looking forward to that campfire chat to see if we're going to get some new changes or whatnot. So if you're looking for that, I'll be watching the campfire chat on stream, so come by my live stream, twitch.tv/Drybear. I'll see you there. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.